Oh my goodness, I am so sorry about that. We're having a few technical difficulties today. My internet is fixed because remember last week, if you were watching, you know that I was having some trouble with my internet, and now it's telling me that my signal isn't strong enough, so I've shifted a little bit closer. Hopefully this will work, and I've also turned off my wireless and I'm connected to the 4G network. So I'm sorry about that. Just to recap, this week we're talking about teaching the critical skills needed in a world with fake news. And as I was saying earlier, I was talking about 3 of the things that I think are really important to be teaching the students in our class today. And those 3 are, number 1, I think it's really important that we teach we also need to teach them how to analyse the sources, and we need to teach our students those important research skills. And this week's freebie that we have for you is jam-packed with some material that's all about search. In that freebie, we do require your email, and even if you've signed up with us before, we're going to ask you for your email again. But don't worry, we don't pass your email on to any third parties. But if you get this week's freebie, you'll see that inside it's jam-packed with some resources. We have got a video on searching using Google search from the wonderful Jeff Utek, and we also have a teacher handout that goes with that kind of scribes what Jeff is saying in the video for you, and it also includes some teaching resources, and it's actually got a lesson plan for K to 2, grades 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and grades 9 to 12. So there's 4 different lesson plans that can help you do an introductory lesson into the skills required when you are actually doing a Google search. There's also a list of some kid-friendly search engines. Last week we had Robin in the audience, and she asked about kid-friendly search engines and should you use them. If your kids are in the younger grades, then I think that it's probably a good idea, especially when you're introducing your students to searching on the web. It's a really good idea to use a kid-friendly search engine, especially one that is powered by Google search anyway. So you have all the really awesome features that Jeff mentions in his video that go along with Google search, but what you also have is the added layer of protected sites. So it kind of helps filter out those nasties that are out there on the web. That's not to say that any search engine or any filter that you use is 100% foolproof, because unfortunately we can't guarantee that, and no, neither can anyone else. So just be aware that it is still possible for some of those nasties to come through, but certainly using a kid-friendly search engine can help eliminate some of those. So that freebie delves a little bit deeper into the actual research skills, so I'm going to leave that topic alone a little bit. And the second thing that I mentioned was about analysing the sources, and we're going to delve a little bit deeper in that in our week 4 Facebook Live event, where we discuss things like the CRAP test or the CARP test if you've got younger students. So I'm going to leave that one alone today as well, and I'm going to go back to the first thing that I mentioned. If you're just joining us now, I was talking about 3 skills that I think are really important, and the number 1 skill that I think is that critical thinking skill. So that's what I'd like to talk about a little bit more in depth today. But of course, if you ask any questions in the comment section, then I'll try to answer those if you're asking them while I'm live, or I'll try and answer those a bit later if you watch the video later, and I'll answer any comments that are pinned in the comment section. Before I forget, that access to the freebie today that goes along with this event can be found at, we have a bit.ly link for you, bit.ly/Eduro search, and so you'll just have to give us your email and then you will be sent that awesome jam-packed PDF. So, talking about critical thinking skills. Now, just like last week, the geek that I am, I did do an infographic for you, and so I'll just head back to my little table. I'm kind of trying to move so that the signal stays live, but I do have 2 infographics for you today because I've got so much to talk about that it wouldn't all fit on one page. So we have today's infographic that I will share again. I'll share it in Instagram and I'll share it in our Facebook page again, so no need to write down any notes. And if you're watching this video after it's been recorded, then you too can have access to the infographic sketch note and also the freebie PDF if you sign up for it. And I also have the second sketch note. Let me just turn the pages over here, and there's the second one that goes as well. So back to critical thinking. One of the things that I wanted to mention last week and I completely forgot, even though it was on my sketch note, was that a lot of this conversation has been coming out after a study that was done in November, or the results were released in November 2006, and it was the researchers from the Stanford, let me get this right, Stanford Graduate School of Education, and they did a little research project into kind of the subject of fake news. And what was really disturbing to them, and a little bit disturbing to us as educators, is that it was middle school to college students, and I think there was around 7,800 students that were surveyed, and 82%, yes, 82% of middle school students had some real trouble distinguishing between a clearly labelled ad that was labelled sponsored content and an article of real news. Now, I don't know about you, but that's kind of concerning, and so that really is at the forefront of today's discussion about how do we teach our kids to be able to distinguish between all of these different things that are on the internet, and ultimately whether something is real or fake. So I've been thinking a lot about what we can do, thinking a lot about what I did with my own children, and also thinking about what I did with my grade 3 students and my grade 5 students. And so some of the things that I'm going to mention now are definitely things that you can do with your students, no matter what level they are. So if you are finding that your students are having some trouble distinguishing between fact and fiction, there's a couple of really simple things that I believe that you can do, and I've written them down so I don't forget them. So if you see me casting a glance downwards, I'm just checking my sketch note to make sure I don't forget anything important. So one of the things that you can do, and I think this is really important these days, is that instead of just getting on with the lesson or whatever, especially if you're doing a research project, you've got to allow time now to make sure that students know and can and do really think about their resources and where they're getting their information from. And this just isn't about like fake news. This can also be about things like fake websites and getting information that really isn't true. So this is of value whether you're looking at news or you're looking at gathering information for a project. I think one of the important things that you need to spend time doing is that you have to ask your kids, where are they getting their information from? In other words, like, why did you click on that particular one? And having them explain, or being able to explain, like what led them to choosing that particular resource and clicking on that one. And from there, it's really important to encourage the evaluation of the source. One of the things on my sketch note that I've written in big capital letters is that we are being fooled because we don't stop and question the source of the information. So I think that that's a critical skill that we need to teach our students today, is evaluating that source of information. We have to notice the source. We have to think about the reasons why this information was published. Is it to inform? Is it to entertain? Is it to trick? There's a terminology out now. It's clickbaiting, so encouraging you to click on something to read it. And so we need to ensure that our students are aware of why this person or this producer or this group is publishing this particular information. One of the things that I think is really, really important is that we really need to encourage our students to think very, very deeply about what they're looking at before they form an opinion. And so it's really worth spending that time. I know that we kind of think of research projects or research in general as getting to the end product, but I think today more than ever before it's really important that we look at the journey to getting that information. Hey Robin, you've joined us. I don't know whether you heard earlier that the question that you asked last week about kid-friendly search engines. We have a little surprise for you in this week's freebie. We have a list of kid-friendly search engines, and I also did a little chat about using kid-friendly search engines, and just to recap what I said there, I did say that I thought if you have younger students, especially grade 5 and under perhaps, and you're just starting out with teaching them how to search, that it is a good idea to use kid-friendly search engines, especially if they are ones that are powered by Google Search, because you get all those features that Jeff mentions in the video, and you also have an added layer of protection. So go back and watch the beginning of this live video and you'll hear me talk a little bit more about your question from last week. It's lovely to have you here. I hope the weather is good for you in Canada right now, because when I get there in a couple of weeks, I want it to be lovely. So put on the lovely weather for me, please. All right, so we're back to one of the points that I was mentioning about really evaluating our sources and thinking about the reasons why that particular information is there. So just to recap, like, where are you getting your information from? Why did you click on that? Really doing a critical thinking and evaluating the source. What are the reasons why that information has been published? And what are the viewpoints of the source? That's very important too. And do they present a one-sided viewpoint, or do they present both sides of the viewpoint? And as I said before, just before Robin joined us, I was talking about encouraging our students to really think very, very deeply about all of the information that they've gathered before they form their opinion. And so one of the tips about fake news is that if the information that you're looking at is less than, let's say, 150, 100 words, which is typically the length of a fake news item, then more research is needed. And of course, we already mentioned last week that it's important to get your information from a variety of sources, and so this is another reason why we should really think very, very deeply about all the information that we've got and then form a decision on what we now believe or what we think or what we've learned. Another really important factor that I think we should also be encouraging our students to do is that when we're listening to others' points of view or reading other points of view or responding to other points of view. I think that we need to teach our kids to be respectful of other viewpoints, and even if they disagree with those opinions. And in our freebie, we have an infographic that talks about how to be respectful in the digital world, and there's about 5 tips, I think, that are there for helping your students to respectfully disagree. And as part of our teaching empathy to unite a divided world, which of course is the reason why we're doing these Facebook Live events at the moment, that is the second course. Now, last week I mentioned that we have a series course. It has 3 courses. Course number 1, oh, and there goes the dog. That's an unfortunate side effect of doing a Facebook Live outside, is that the dog might bark at somebody going past. Hopefully he'll settle down in a little bit. As I said, there's 3 courses. Last week I told you about fake news and the responsibility to be digitally literate. I had trouble with it last week. I'm having trouble with it again this week. And this week we have the second course I'd like to tell you a little bit about, and that is respectfully disagreeing as a digital citizen. And so included in this week's PDF is an infographic that goes along with that course. And remember that you can either take Teaching Empathy to Unite a Divided World as a series, or you can take the courses individually. So you could take the fake news one, or you could take this being respectfully disagreeing as a digital citizen. And I think I have totally botched the title of that, but you'll find it on our online courses page at edurolearning.com/teachers. So head on along there if that interests you and you're keen to delve a little bit deeper and get some more resources about how you can help your students to respectfully disagree. But do check out this week's freebie, because we do have that awesome infographic at the end of that freebie, which also includes a list of kid-friendly search engines just for you, Robin, and there is also a video from the awesome Jeff Utic who takes you through how to search or how to read a search results page, and also there's a scribe of that particular video with all the notes and the important things that Jeff mentions, plus there's some awesome lesson plans in there, lesson plans for K-2, 3-5, 6-8 and grades 9-10 that help you to do an introductory lesson about teaching your students the important research skills, especially how to read a search index results page. So that's a really awesome PDF this week. Now I can see my video is shaking a little bit. My arm is getting a little bit tired, so I'm just going to change the view a little bit and let my other hand do the work. Right, so one of the things that I mentioned a wee bit earlier was that we are being fooled by fake news because we're not stopping and questioning the source of the information. So some of the other things that we can do to avoid that and avoid getting any wrong kind of information, whether it be some serious topic that we're doing research on, we can talk about things like fake news website checkers. So there are a number of those that we can use to also just double check that we're not being fooled by a fake site. So there is factcheck.org, and there is EasyBib has a website evaluation tool, and I'll put these links on the sketch note that I'll share with you, and I'll also put them in the comments after I finish broadcasting so that you can get access to those. Hoaxlayer is another really good one that you can use, and then there's the one called Snopes. Now I did some research to make sure that I did pronounce that right, and it does rhyme with soaps, so it's called Snopes, SNOPES, and that is amazing, that particular site. They're so up to date that it's not even funny. I went there to find out how to pronounce the name, of course, and it was the day that the doctor was evicted from the United Airlines flight, and they already had that up on the site to say whether it was fake news or whether it was real news. So that's how quickly they are getting things up there on that site. So that's a really good one to have, especially if you're doing things like current events and you're checking the news and having conversations in your classroom about what's going on in the world. You can very, very easily use Snopes and double check that whatever the sensational news item that's coming out for the day is in fact real. And there was also a right underneath that one about the man being evicted from the United Airlines flight, there was also the one about the, I don't know if you heard, but there was a Malaysian man, I think, that was swallowed whole by a python, and so they had that whole looking at that, and as yet they haven't decided whether that is real or not. They're going to keep us posted. So it doesn't always give you a conclusive answer, but it certainly gives you some things to think about, like things to check, and start some really good conversations with students. And so again, it's just one of those easy things that you can do in the classroom with kids, is just have a conversation. And hopefully these freebies and these live events that we are giving you here at Eduro Learning, they can help you start those conversations if you're a little bit apprehensive about, like, well, how do I do that, and what should I know, and what should I have organised. And so that's the point of all these things that we're sharing with you, because these are all lessons that all of us here at Eduro Learning have already done with our kids, and that's the context is just changing. The content isn't. We're just adapting what we've done in the classroom before and adapting it to fit what's going on in the world today, especially a world that unfortunately is full of fake news and sensationalised things happening in the world. I mentioned before that I had a second sketch note for you, and I'm just going to turn to that and show you again. And this one is just some critical thinking questions, because that's what I wanted to focus on today, is the critical thinking skills. I wanted to share with you some questions about questions that you could consider using with students. And I'm doing the Aussie wave at the moment because it's blowfly season, so sorry about that. Hello Jeff, hello Emily, thank you for joining me. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, but the internet seems to be holding right now, so hopefully it will continue until we end in probably about 2 minutes. So those critical questions, and don't worry about writing these down, because I will share a second sketch note with you, because I love sketchnoting right now. And so those, I have 5 questions for you. So question number 1 is, always ask who created the message, like who's the author, who's the source, who's the producer, who's the publisher. Question number 2 is, who is the message intended for? So talking about, like, who are they trying to reach? Who's the producer or the source trying to reach, and who is their intended message for? What techniques does the producer use to make the message credible or believable? And so you could talk there about emotive language. You can talk about, are there different viewpoints? Are they using sensational language to entice you into believing that this is true? Those are the sorts of things that you want to be talking about when you're asking your students that question. What details might be omitted and why? I mean, the reasons for doing that are obvious, of course. Why should this message be coming out, and is there anything missing? And if it seems like something is missing, i.e. another viewpoint perhaps, or any sources to back up what is being said, then we need to be asking, like, what's not there and why isn't it there? And the last question is, of course, where can I go to locate some more accurate information to help me build a picture of what I am reading or what I am learning or what I'm getting a sense of? So those are 5 really good critical thinking questions that you can use tomorrow in the classroom. Well, not tomorrow because it's Saturday. And if you're joining me from the South Pacific, of course, it's Easter, so happy Good Friday. From us here in Australia and New Zealand. I know we're celebrating Easter this weekend. I don't know if anyone else is celebrating Easter, but I do believe that on the other side of the world you may be celebrating spring break. So happy spring break to you. Perhaps it's coming to the end of spring break and you're going back to school next week. These are some things that you can use straight away in your classroom to really help encourage critical thinking. So back to those 3 main points about the critical skills that I believe are needed, especially in a world that is full of fake news. The critical thinking, the analysing the source, which we'll delve deeper into in week 4, and the research skills, which this week's freebie is just jam-packed with awesome stuff about how to really delve a little bit deeper. Oh, and one more thing, head on over to edurolearning.com/teachers, and there you can see all of our courses that we have available if you want to delve a little bit deeper into some of these topics that we're talking about, and some more, of course. And also it's where you can start picking up these freebies in our resources part of our blog. And also one extra little thing that you might like to investigate, Kent State University has a online tool for grades 3 and up. It's called Trails, and I'll put this information into the comment section after I end the video. But if you are interested in checking to see just the level of information literacy and research skills that your students have before you really start delving deep into teaching them how to research and research critically, that you could test them using this particular tool. You do have to sign up for with an email account, but it is free and it is aligned to the Common Core. So that's Kent State University, and it's called Trails. It's tools. I can't remember. I'm too nervous. I can't remember what it stands for, but that's a really interesting tool. I haven't used it myself because, of course, it's come out after I've come out of the classroom, but I'd be really interested to hear if anyone does use that to see where their students are, and perhaps do it again afterwards to see if your students have moved with their research skills. So that's a hot tip there. Oh, thank you, Emily. She's put the link in the comment for me already. That's awesome. So that's it for today. Thank you again for joining me and bearing with our technical difficulties. Gotta love the internet here in Australia, Western Australia. But we managed to get right through to the end, and once again I've proven to myself that I can talk to myself for 30 minutes, which I didn't think that I could do. Join us here next week. It's not going to be me, but I will be in the audience, and I will be doing some sketch notes, and they'll be released afterwards as well. So check our Instagram feed, check our Facebook feed, and check our blog, edurolearning.com. This is Chrissy Hallier. So glad that you joined us again this week for the critical skills needed in a world with fake news. Take care. Bye.